When I think about what motivates me to get out of bed in the morning, it's seeing my son reach a new milestone, or sharing a quiet moment with my wife, or running that extra half mile in my morning runs. And in my professional life, sparking that curiosity in the mind of a learner. Understanding motivation is the key to unlocking transformation in your online course. So when you examine my motivators, you'll see that they aren't extrinsic. I'm not purely motivated by rewards like money or punishments like losing a client. And the same is true for your learners. You just simply aren't going to upskill others or yourself if you're not motivated to learn. And your motivation to learn must come from intrinsic motivation, that internal fire, that desire to make self-actualization happen in your life. I'm Andrew Barry, welcome back to my channel, and today we'll be exploring motivation and how it's one of the keys to unlocking transformation in your online course. So to do this, we're going to look at intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is driven by reward or the fear of punishment, while intrinsic motivation is driven by the activity itself. Imagine for a second we're traveling back in time by 2.5 million years to the Paleolithic era. And we meet Perseus, one of the first cavemen, who's figuring out how to make a tool to hand hunt animals. If we were to ask him why he's making the tool, he might say something like, to better hunt, kill an animal for food. Clearly a valid extrinsic motivation, right? But there's more to his actions than meet the eye. His behavior shows intrinsic motivation too, the motivation to survive. Perseus is effectively upskilling himself for the Paleolithic era. And from this example, it's clear why it's so important to clarify the motivation of the learner, why they are doing the thing they are doing. If we as humans weren't motivated like this, our ancestral lines would have frozen to death in a cave. Lucky for us, people like Perseus pushed us forward. So fast forward back to the present day. How do we channel that Perseus-like motivation into motivating learners to take our online courses? In fact, it's more than just taking the course, it's completing it and experiencing the transformation that we can deliver. So how do we stimulate intrinsic motivation so that learners take the time out of their day to listen to what we have to teach and to implement, most importantly, those lessons? We'll explore two different ways, and the first one draws on inspiration from Sinek. He teaches us to begin at the end and focus on the why.
There was a confluence of events, and I made this discovery that every single organization on the planet, even our own careers, always function on the same three levels: what we do, how we do it, and why we do it. And it was based on the biology of human decision making. It wasn't some highfalutin management theory. It was based on brain stuff. And I realized I knew what I did and was good at it. And I knew how I did it. I could tell you what was different or special about the way I did things, but I couldn't tell you why I was doing it. That was the missing piece. You have to have all three. I became obsessed with this thing called the why. I figured out how to find my why, and it restored my passion to levels I had never experienced before. And more importantly, I figured out how to help others find theirs.
When learners are challenged to ask what their why is, they are challenged to answer questions like this. Why am I taking this course? What's the purpose of it in my life? Why do I need to learn this? And probably most importantly, how does it benefit me? The answers to these questions stoke that internal fire and uncover intrinsic motivation that you as a teacher can learn to make your course transformational. And it's the motivated learners that will engage more with content, finish the course in less time, and retain more of it once the course is over. In fact, when learners know their why, there's no need to gamify your course with leaderboards and badges and all sorts of activities. While all of those can be great, if you are relying on them to get people to complete your course, at best, you haven't thought about your why, and at worst, you don't have one. Your best course of action, and my key takeaway for this section, is to tie the question of why for your learners into the goal-setting system that you have as onboarding for your course. So a quick example of this, I've been working with a lot of the program directors for fellowships in On Deck, And every single one of them has a very different transformation that they want to have their fellows go through. Some of them, like with my course, for course creators, there is a clear outcome of growing or improving an existing course or creating a new one from scratch. So there's a clear outcome and an output at the end. For others, it's about career acceleration. How do I get further in my career as a designer or a chief of staff? And for others still, it's about meeting people. Climate Tech, the Founder Fellowship, are about meeting people who are PhDs in climate and founders in companies and finding ways to come up with ideas to create companies together. So if those three broad categories all have very different outcomes, but all of them, if you clarify the why for the fellows coming in, you can make sure that they get what they want to get out of that course. So always think about how you can ask your learners to share with you why they're doing the course early and often during the programming. The second way to approach this comes from the brilliant author Daniel Pink. One of his ideas is that to stimulate intrinsic motivation in adult learners, you need to satisfy three things: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy in this instance is the learner's desire to direct their own lives, to have ownership of their own learning. Mastery is the learner's urge to make progress in something that matters. And I love the idea that mastery is about making progress. It's a journey that keeps continuing. It never ends. You can keep getting better and learning more about something. And finally, purpose is about a learner's yearning to do something greater than themselves, to have a higher purpose for what they're doing. Online course creation is actually a great example of these three things. Having autonomy over your own teaching, your own course, and perhaps the business that turns into is a big part of the drive to want to learn to be a better course creator. Mastery is about that ideal of making your course the best it can possibly be. And I've talked to so many course creators and none of them are satisfied with where they are. They always want to keep getting better and keep pushing the boundaries of where their course can go. And finally, purpose for a course creator is often about making an impact on someone else's life. And there can be no greater reward than helping someone learn something that benefits them in their lives. So if you were really to distill what Simon Sinek and Daniel Pink are talking about when it comes to motivation, it's about creating an emotional connection for the learner to the content that they're learning. And it's this emotional connection that sparks intrinsic motivation to keep going and keep learning. So let's go back to Perseus and his close range hunting tool. In this case, he's emotionally invested in his task because his survival is at stake. So he's naturally motivated to develop competence and solve problems. But it's not easy to just get someone to have that intrinsic motivation. So how do we stimulate that in our learners in our online course? There are many answers to this question, but the one that I have found has worked really well for me comes back to emotion and stimulating that emotion. Because when emotions are aroused, attention is heightened. And attention is the most valuable commodity your learners have. And you have to find a way to capture a share of their attention and then with trust, let them dedicate that to you going forward. We'll talk about trust in a later video in this series, but how do we go about capturing that initial attention? One of the best ways I've seen of doing this is through video. And then most importantly, it's drawing on a bit of what Simon Sinek says, is capturing the why behind what you're doing in a compelling and powerful video. Think about it. When you watch a great film or a series on Netflix, it's that powerful concoction of images and music and sound effects that draw you in and capture your attention. And honestly, look at any video on YouTube. It's those first few moments of the video that need to capture attention to draw your learners in. There are plenty of great examples of this. I've worked with Ali Abdal, who is an expert at creating videos that capture attention. So have a look at his channel to get some ideas on this. I think David Perel does an incredible job with his page, drawing you in to why Rite of Passage is such a powerful course. So go have a look at these to get a good idea and inspiration for how to get emotional connection with your learners. It's that kind of motivation that keeps learners coming back for more and helps them retain and want to implement what you're teaching them. But remember the core principles. As long as you are challenging your learners to find their why and to share that with you, or you're addressing the points of autonomy, mastery, and purpose, you're doing your job as a course creator. Now, implementing these ideas isn't always easy. I've shared a few best practices and I've offered some examples that I highly recommend you check out. But if you've got any specific questions about your particular course, of how you can generate the why and how you can stimulate that emotion in your audience, send them to me in the comments below. I love reading them. I will respond to every single one of them. So let's get a conversation going. That's it for today on stoking motivation in learners. We'll be back next week with another video. Please like and subscribe to be notified as soon as that comes out. I'll see you then.